I said, hey, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
It is time for Happy Hour. It is the Man Cave Happy Hour. Whiskey, cigar, spirits, the stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
I am Matt Fox.
Matt Fox, how do we find ourselves in these amazing Man Cave
If I
bunkers?
was not given explicit instructions on how to find this place, I would not have found it in any way, shape, or form.
It says private club.
The
private club.
Yes.
We are literally in a private club. There's like lots of people here hanging out.
Yes.
And they're here for a very specific reason. We're here for a very specific reason.
Correct.
And we're tasting stuff tonight, Matt.
I haven't tasted something in a few weeks. I'm kind of excited to dive into something we have never tried before.
I cheated though. I had one of them already.
Oh, okay. So you're coming into that with a little bit of knowledge.
So, but there's so much to try, and there's so much to do. It's unbelievable.
So, Jamie, I know you're taking a drink of your beverage.
Yes.
But we have a very special individual with us tonight as well.
Well, and that's it. We're enough pussyfooting around.
Yeah, let's get into this.
On the Man Cave with us today is Nolan Smith, the owner, chief cook and bottle washer.
Thank you.
How many hats do you wear, right?
Backbone Bourbon.
Yeah, there's a few, but we're a small company, but I wear a few hats.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It's Backbone Bourbon Company.
Backbone Bourbon Company.
And so this is it you? Is it a group of you?
There's three of us.
Okay.
I have a partner, a founding. We both founded it together. We started the company in 2014.
Okay.
And then we have a third person who's been with us for a year and a half, and that's a full-time salesperson.
So when they're out traveling, are they traveling right now through Michigan? Where are they focusing a lot of their efforts
Midwest.
right now?
So this particular person lives in South Bend, and so Michigan is his new favorite market. He tries to get here as much as he can.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
He gets on well with our distributor.
Is that Steve?
Steve, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
Steve's amazing. Steve is how we got connected.
Yeah, he seems like he knows everybody.
And
right?
so he
knows us. I don't know. Got to be careful with that.
Yeah. So we really enjoyed meeting Steve, and he brought us to you and all these. But before we go further with Backbone Bourbon, Nolan, tell me about your childhood.
Tell me about my childhood. Oh, come on.
What's your story, Nolan?
Well, I grew up in South Africa, Durban, South Africa.
Okay.
Came to the U.S., went to university in Indianapolis in the late 90s, did an MBA there. And then I was able to stay, met my wife, and then they couldn't get rid of me. But
your wife or Indiana?
No, I think Indiana likes me enough.
All right.
My wife, I think, sometimes wants to get rid of me. But I have the story I tell my wife. I came on the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. It was 1996, the first day I set foot in this country. Yeah. I had a backpack, 2 pairs of shoes, and about $800 in my pocket. Uh-huh. Now, according to my wife,
yes,
I've lost the backpack. I was barefoot when I arrived, and I had $5 in my pocket. That's how the story has kind of gotten down to. But you know what? I love being in this country. I love being an American, but I also love kind of being a foreigner. Yeah. And I think this is the greatest country in the world. I think it's easy to, if you're from a place, it's easy to take it for granted. But I tell you, this is the best place in the world, and I really to have a business, to have a family, is a real pleasure for me.
Do you get back to the homeland every once in a while?
Not a whole lot. No? We tried to go last year, but. No, we haven't gone back as much.
Okay.
Our kids are getting older, so a little bit easier to travel, but not as much as we would like.
That's fair. It'll happen.
Yeah.
So let's get that. I love that story. I always love asking that question because people have stories that they.
It's a true story. It was a backpack, $800, 2 pairs of shoes. I still got the backpack. I don't have as much cash anymore.
See,
how many kids do you have?
Yeah, we could have skipped right over that by mistake and missed that. But yeah, we appreciate you bringing in, because now Backbone Bourbon isn't just Backbone Bourbon. It's there's rye, and there's some clear spirits, and there's how many different expressions do you have?
What we call as core products, we have around 6.
Okay.
There's 2 ryes, 3 bourbons, and a gin. When we started the company, we did the gin as a backup in case we didn't have any whiskey that was ready to sell. So, and we both like gin, my partner and I. So we don't sell a lot of gin, but I couldn't imagine not having a gin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm digging it, because a Backbone, if I'm not mistaken, your kind of philosophy is you want it to be uncut. You want it to be straight and unfiltered. Does that hold true for that major 6 or the 5?
Yeah.
The 2 ryes and the 3 bourbons, are they all uncut and unfiltered?
Only one is really truly uncut.
Yeah.
The others are what I would call virtually uncut.
Right.
So that's how we started. We felt like that would be the one key thing we could do. We actually started these. We started Backbone Uncut in 2010 as a private label for another business we have, and we had this little sample from the distillery we still buy from, and we kept tasting it, and it was a barrel sample. It was a high proof, and we just couldn't believe how good the barrel sample tasted. But we kind of knew, being in the alcohol business, that everyone kind of did a 90 proof, and we kind of played with a 90 proof, and it was okay. But man, the barrel sample was great.
Yeah.
And we kept referring to this: should we cut it? Should we not cut it? And so, eventually we got. This is one of my favorite stories, but we got an expert.
Let me put in quotations.
We got an expert. This guy owned his own bar. He owned his own bar, and a great bar, cigar bar, and he thought of it more as a bourbon bar than a cigar bar. So this wonderful gentleman, we brought him over to our business. We had probably about 100 milliliters left of a 200 milliliter sample, and maybe not that much, maybe a little bit less. It was my partner and I. It was one of our senior sales guys at the time, and then the expert. It's a beautiful summer night. We're at the back on the ramp, and I poured the entire contents of the sample back into a glass like this. And the idea was we were all going to try it, and we were all going to, chime in on, kind of have a meeting about it. Well, this expert turned his back to us. He put it up to the stars, looked at the color, swirled it around, and downed the whole damn thing. And he turned around and said, "Don't cut it." And you know what? We haven't cut it since. So that was 2010. And it was kind of a crystallizing moment that this is what we want our business to be about.
Right to the bones.
Right. Yeah. So the Backbone name, there's a creek in southern Indiana called Backbone Creek.
Okay. This hails from Indiana.
This is an Indiana-produced bourbon. The distillery's in Indiana. It's MGP. I'm sure the aficionados that are listening know MGP very well.
Oh yeah.
And we have other distilleries, but for the most part, that's the distillery we buy from. So Backbone, nice strong name. We kind of felt like it represented a good Midwestern characteristic. People with integrity and character. We created a label that was pretty simple. We kind of wanted a Wild West theme. Someone going into a bar and saying, "Give me a shot of whiskey." They didn't ask what kind of whiskey. They just said, "Give me a shot of whiskey."
Right.
And that whiskey wasn't some fancy dancy 90 proof. It was whatever came out of the barrel, which they had in the back. So we crafted our labels that way.
They do have a Wild West kind of feel to it. The rye. I love the rye bottle, the bone snapper straight rye. And we're going to get to all of these. Yeah. I'm calling an Uber, Nolan. I think he's like, well, I go, which ones are we going to try? And he lined up 7. And I'm like, oh boy.
Wife?
Honey, can you? All right. So Nolan, all right. So like you said, there's six your six mainstays, but you have some other ones that move in and out.
We do. We have some special releases. We have some. We have a super reserve bourbon called Old Bones, and we only release that when we can find the whiskey that meets the quality profile.
That's the 10-year reserve?
That's the 15.
Is that the 15? Oh, even better.
Bones.
Old Bones.
Yeah.
You turned it around on me. I couldn't read.
Yeah. The 10-year's got a black wax seal.
Ah, fair.
And the 15 we did a red wax. So
all right, this is coming in at 107 proof.
That was what was the barrel. That was the barrel. So we typically like about 110 proof on some of the special release stuff. We feel like that's a premium kind of proof.
Because your bourbon drinkers, the guys, they like it hotter and hotter. They like it. You know, the guys that really get into bourbon, once they really get into it, they want bring the heat. You know, they want to feel it.
I want the warmth.
Yeah, you guys like curry? Do you like Indian curry? Yeah. Because if you do, the downward slide on Indian curry is you just want it hotter and hotter, and then when you get it so hot, you go back to the mild stuff. You can't drink it anymore. I mean, eat it. That's it. You know. So, but I do feel like that there is more flavor in a high proof. You know, there is magic in that barrel. There's oils and there's, you know, from the wood obviously, but there's a combo of you know a magical thing happening in that barrel. And when you put water in it, and there's nothing wrong with drinking 90 proof whiskey, nothing wrong with it at all. But you sort of lose a little bit of that magic that's in that barrel. And what we want to do is get people as close to what's in that barrel. You know, if they wanted to try our stuff and afford our stuff, then we want to try and give them, you know, as much for their money as possible. So it's really that simple for us.
So sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 15 for the Old Bones.
Right. That is. I never thought I would find some 15-year-old whiskey. Now that is actually from Kentucky. That's from Frankfort, Kentucky.
All right.
We are not allowed to know the actual distiller, and that's how that world works a little bit.
When they source it for you, they keep a little quiet.
Okay, and that's okay. You know,
fair enough.
If you don't need to know where that's distilled, once you've tasted it. You know, once we tasted it, it was a very easy decision for us.
So now this 15-year it's because you're coming out at barrel proof. How many barrels are you putting together? A few barrels, or
so we had enough barrels to do 3 batches.
Okay,
we got a little over 200 6-packs out of the first lot of barrels.
So these are pretty exclusive, then.
Very exclusive, yeah.
Okay,
that's you know, I don't know. We're on the lookout, and I think there'll be more opportunities. But I think these 3 batches of 15, Old Bones 15s, will be collector's items. I don't think they're going to be around very often.
Wow! All right, so I'm trying to smell it.
Yeah, off the nose. So I'm getting floral.
Now, when you did your pick, when you picked this, what were you looking for?
Well, you know, when you taste a lot of bourbon, you're looking for something that's well made. You don't want to have any off-putting aromas or tastes. You don't want anything industrial. You want a nice integration of the whiskey and the wood. Honestly, I think this is a very soft bourbon.
It's at $110, right?
The proof is 107.
107. I'm sorry.
107. Okay. Yeah, it's a very soft bourbon, and I think it's about right for 15 years old. You know, these things they don't last forever. They've got a certain life point or a lifespan, and I think at this point in this bourbon's life, it's certainly, if it were a person, it would certainly be later in one's life where they've slowed down a little bit, maybe a little bit more deliberate in their lifestyle. But the one thing I love about this bourbon is the cherry. It's got a lot of those red fruit notes. Some of our other bourbons have a lot of attack up front, but this is very gentle up front. It's got a great mid palate, lovely finish, but on that finish I get a ton of cherry.
because I've been sniffing, and what I'm sniffing is caramel and sweet. I sniff caramel and sweet, but there is a nice color to this too. There's almost a red.
It's got that amber, very amber
red
feel to it.
Amber. All right, enough talking.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can feel the proof.
Yeah, you feel the proof.
You feel it's like, because it smells a lot sweeter and a lot lighter, but you feel the proof.
So we're a bit susceptible when it comes. If someone says, "Hey, cherry,"
power of suggestion, cherry.
I'm going, okay.
There it is.
I'm thinking cherry, blackberry. I'm trying to find that fruit.
There's a fruit component to it.
Right. I'm going pomegranate.
There you go. You don't get a lot of those, but they exist.
Fleshy apple.
I don't know. So there is a red. You're right. It is a red fruit, a cherry, pomegranate. Yeah.
Yeah, that warmth is just lingering for a bit.
Yes.
It's not on the up front. It's sitting on the palate, in the back of my throat. It's
the finish is long.
It touches sweet on the tongue on the way in, and then mid tongue and back, it really warms up. Yeah.
I'm gonna savor the next sip.
It's wow, and it's hanging out.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. You never.
That's got some serious legs.
You never want to sit back and shoot whiskey. Never do that in any way, shape, or form. You want something that you can sip on
absolutely
for a while.
Absolutely.
Maybe have a cigar with it as well.
Yeah.
But this is one of those bourbons in my mind that I would sit back and just enjoy while watching a television show or a movie or what have you.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't go through it very fast because it lingers for so long. You don't have to keep going back to it.
Yeah, and bourbon is so cultural in this country. This is, they've said this about tea, but bourbon is not necessarily a drink. It's an experience. It's a pastime. And when you're sitting around having a good bourbon, life tends to be pretty good in that moment.
Fair.
You'll seek out great spaces. You'll seek out friends. So. It's more than just the drink. It's what goes around bourbon that makes it just such a great experience. Sometimes it's not as big, it's not as intimate. Sometimes there's no one around, it's just you. Sometimes it's a crappy day. Sometimes it's a great day. But it still feels like you're part of something.
Yeah.
That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah. Everyone's got a daily drinker, right? A lot of folks, hey, that's what I have on the daily. Well, good for you. Why don't you enjoy something that you can sit back and relax with? Sure. With you're by yourself or with friends, and share. This is a very shareable bottle. This is something that you'd want to share with your buddies and with your friends, for that matter, right? Sit down and, hey, I found something incredible. It's 107 proof, but you know what? Enjoy it,
right? Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Great gift. A great gift idea always. Yes. Bourbon's always a great gift idea. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
And it can last. I mean, this one can be brought out at certain times of the year. And maybe just feel like this kind of flavor profile. I think that happens a lot in the bourbon world, where you've got, maybe you don't have as many, maybe you've got 3 or 4 where you just feel like it's that kind of day for that kind of drink. So again, I think this is a very soft bourbon. I think there's kind of a grand old lady feel to it to me. I mean that in a very positive way. That if I had to think of a person, it's someone who's got a lot of grace and has maybe been a little bit more spirited at some point in their lives. But they've calmed down a little bit. But you can when you talk to them, you can still feel that kind of that zest for life.
That passion.
That's in there.
Back in my day.
Exactly.
Love it. So that was the first bourbon. You said after we tried that, we should dive into the Rise a little bit.
I wanted to do the Rise. The old ones I want to do first because I think it's probably the most delicate we've got here tonight. I think it's probably would require a little bit more thought on getting the full experience. I wanted to go to the Rise because. Well, I don't know if they had a really good reason, but I wanted to finish with the bourbons.
Sure.
But the Rise, I've got 2 different kinds of Rise.
Right.
Bone Snapper is, I think, one of the It might be my favorite name of the whole deal. On the back of Bone Snapper is we kind of made this up, but it's a surprise.
I love this little bottle.
Yeah,
I love
it's broad-shouldered. It's it's that font of that rye. I tell you, when that came out in 2011, that font has been used by other companies, and that's fine. I think that's fine. But but
the distressed, it's got a little distressed feel to it.
Exactly.
And all right, so is this one the one we're going to go first?
Yes.
There's the Bone Snapper and then the Bone Snapper X-Ray.
X-Ray. And X-Ray is a reserve.
Okay.
Bone Snapper Original is it's a lower price point. It's still a high proof. It's 108 proof.
Right.
And the typical age is around 30 months for that. We might do it a little bit younger. We might do it a little bit.
This guy says 31.
31. Okay. and it's a really critical age of the barrels, because once you get to about 3 years old, these barrels start to change and they become a different personality. And really, the two ryes represent the two places that these barrels get to and go through. So with Bone Snapper Original, it's certainly got a lot of vigor and spice and zest. You can kind of feel like there's some tension going on. With there's different parts of the flavors that are trying to come together and dominate. There's a little bit of
like teenagers coming together, right?
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. They don't know exactly what they want to be yet, but man, they've got a lot to say, whether it makes sense or not. So, kind of a herbaceousness to this. There's a little bit of a spearmint, or there can be at times. I don't always get that. But there's kind of a zinginess to it. And what you'll find with the other one, it's not quite as sweet as the X-Ray. And I want to say that carefully, because this has got nice sweetness, there's no question about it. But because of all that's going on, some of that sweetness is masked up a little bit. Whereas with the X-Ray, it's just kind of out there in the open. It's a much richer, fuller whiskey.
Huh. Yeah. Mash bill on this?
95 rye.
Wow. Okay.
5% malted barley.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
That is rye.
That's
a
big
rye.
rye.
Yeah.
That is,
all right, dive in. All right, so you had said
spice.
The spice was there.
Yep.
You said spearmint, and then I'm waiting for that. I almost want to go out and get my double mint gum, right, at the same time. But there is a mint to that. There really is. But that heat, it's not heat. It's warmth, and it's really not. It's not bite your face off. You know what I mean?
There's a little bit of pepper underneath that mint.
Yeah.
There's a little pepper underneath the mint for me.
Mm-hmm.
Pepper's a good one.
Yeah.
We do well with this in bars. We find the proof helps it in cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
You can really, one thing I don't like is just an overly sweet cocktail.
Yeah.
You want that structure of the underlying alcohol under it, and this I think does well. The proof really helps that. But this is our. I was telling a gentleman earlier. This is our biggest seller throughout the country. Which is ironic because we have bourbon in our name and our company name, but we sell,
and you sell a crap ton of rye.
Yeah, so maybe we should change it to Backbone Whiskey Company.
Oh boy!
But I want you to think about the sweetness, because when we taste the X-Ray, I think it's going to be.
Is it tremendously different, or is it just a tad bit different?
It's in between. It's not vastly different. But it's certainly not just a little bit different.
Fair. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, there's more spice in this. Besides just the pepper and the spearmint. There's another spice in there. I'm trying to put my tongue on.
I like pepper. It's kind of like I get like a kind of a pepper pounding on my the back of my tongue.
Yeah. This is a limestone filtered, is it not? The Bone Snapper, is that limestone filtered at all? Or?
No.
No?
Nope. when you said that, I immediately thought of the aquifers. We have a ton of aquifers in Indiana, and MGP uses, I think, 2 or 3 aquifers. So that's important because that aquifer's got those mineral composites. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, a lot of people think Kentucky's the center of the universe, but Indiana has everything that Kentucky has.
Right, right.
We've got the corn. We've got the aquifers. We've even got, you know, the hardwoods. So back in the day when this was all getting going, you know, we had the raw ingredients. I don't know if it was the same, you know, back then, but you know, I view Indiana as kind of the island. What Ireland is to Scotch, I see Indiana. I'd say Tennessee and Indiana is more the island of, you know, Kentucky.
Sure.
Is to bourbon. So
MGP does the distilling and the barreling. Mm-hmm. Are you guys involved in that at all? Now that, you know, you're getting bigger, or are you just sampling barrels and finding things that fit your profile?
We are sampling barrels. We are picking from what we try.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, because we found, talking to people, that the wood has so much to do with as well.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So the wood is a major player and a major component.
Right.
You know, in picking that wood. So is this Indiana wood probably then?
No.
Where they
these days, it's most of it comes from the Ozarks.
Yeah.
You know what you guys should find someone in the oak barrel business and ask them how they can continue to supply all the bourbon that's being barreled, because I have no freaking idea how.
It's amazing we can still breathe, right?
I know.
All the trees.
Yeah, but I think these forests are so big that they just, after 100 years, they get to the end of the forest and they go back, and you know, the beginning of the forest is already, you know, the trees are 80, 90 years old. So, but the wood is everything.
Yeah.
We have situations where we control the barrel more than at certain times.
Okay.
And if I had to do it all again, I would probably do everything in a particular kind of barrel, specifically a barrel that's dried for longer, air dried for longer. There was those kind of barrels are often used in the wine industry.
So not necessarily a different char, but just something that's aged a little bit longer as far as the wood goes?
Right. Air dried, aged. Because what happens is with bourbon, with corn is a very rough ingredient. It's a very overpowering, dominant ingredient. And so it doesn't need the most finesse when it comes to the oak barrel. So you can age something for a few months. Mm-hmm. And, you know, really that kind of flavor profile has become traditional in the bourbon world. But in my opinion, having a really good barrel adds an intensity to the bourbon. And I can give you an example. We have a very robust single barrel program. And in 2014, when we were starting Backbone Bourbon Company, we couldn't find any barrels. We could spend millions of dollars if we wanted to on I'm just using millions as a way to emphasize how ridiculous it was that we couldn't get any barrels.
Yeah.
You couldn't get any barrels. So you could buy all the liquid you want in the world, but it didn't have a barrel. It meant nothing.
There was no home for it.
There was no home for it.
Yeah.
And so what happened was there was a bad winter in 13 to 14. They couldn't get the wood out of the forest. At that point in time, the demand was increasing, so all these big distilleries were ordering more barrels. So there was a demand issue. So for most of 2014, we couldn't get any barrels. So I found a cooperage that would sell me a few here and a few there, and these were barrels that they were making for the wine industry, for a high-end California winery.
They were dried more.
3 years, and they were very expensive. I mean, these were $300 or $400.
Yeah.
And you know, I bought them because, you know, it was the only thing we had. Come to find out, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, these were the most unbelievable barrels. And as I say, they added richness, they added intensity to the bourbon. So when you say the wood is important, I say just about the only thing that really... Well, you have to have good distillation. You can't have crap distillation.
It's really a risk-reward at that point because you took the risk on, utilizing that cooperage.
Right.
But the reward was something that you really, really enjoyed and wanted to put out.
Right. And I think the bourbon business is, it doesn't happen quickly. It happens over time. So what happens is, with the time, you make mistakes. You make mistakes anyway. But sometimes when you make mistakes or you take a longer, route to where you're trying to get to, it can really work out in the end because really what you need is time.
Yeah.
And over time, we have another set of barrels where we bought early on in our history. We bought bourbon in totes, like in a plastic tote.
Wow.
Oh, good God.
And that was all that was available. We wanted aged stuff, so we bought it. It was very expensive, and then we rebarreled it into another new barrel. So it was 2.5 years in one barrel, dumped and put in a tote, and then we bought it and then rebarreled it. And you know what? Those barrels today are drinking. They are some of the most popular single barrels we have. And what's unique about, we call them a double barrel, but what's unique about these double barrels is that the second barrel has had the longest amount of time. Often the second barrel has less
the
time
least amount,
than the first time.
Yeah.
So I send these barrels out for on our single barrel program, and they get snapped up immediately.
Wow.
So
you do. I said do. You do
You're a
barrel
child.
picks for stores.
yes, that's a big part of our business.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of the profile. You kind of help guide that profile to be kind of backbone, and then from there, it's whatever the barrel is, right?
Well, yes. I think as far as the DNA goes, we love the single barrels because I think I've only had one person not bottle it at barrel strength.
Okay.
And I think this particular barrel was in the 130s, so they might have cut it down to 120, but everything we sell in a single barrel is at barrel strength. So that fits our profile, our DNA very well. But you know what? Our approach to single barrels is to provide variety. And so when you're a new bourbon company or whiskey company, it's very difficult to have variety. But after 6, 7, 8 years, we've got a ton of variety, and the variety is not only the different kinds of whiskey; it's the ages of whiskey. We have a significant finished barrel. We put it in a finishing cask, basically.
Okay.
We've got a lot of that stuff, and we've got traditional things like sherry and port and rum and Cabernet, but we've also got some non-traditional things like Amaro and Mezcal and Vermouth, and so variety is is definitely a big deal when it comes to our single barrel program, but it's all high proof.
Right. One of the things that we've always talked about is the expansion of your palate, right? As a bourbon company, as you continue to grow, you're continuing to expand your palate into other spirits at the same time.
Yes.
Right? So what would happen, what is on the docket in the next couple of years for Backbone in that regard as you continue to expand?
I think we're going to stick to whiskey.
Good.
I think
stick with what's good.
But what is going to happen and is happening is I think in our DNA we have the ability to blend together, and it's a very it's a century-old pastime. The Scots have mastered the ability to blend, but I see us putting whiskeys together that become greater than the sum of their parts. We have one that we're going to taste a little bit called Decade Down, which is an anniversary release of Backbone Uncut.
What's it called again?
Decade Down.
Decade Down.
Decade
so
Down.
It's 10
is
years.
that the 10-year?
Yeah, it's a 10-year
Look
anniversary.
at me with the
Look at you and your math.
That's right. And that's a blend. And again, it sort of goes back to this having the barrel portfolio, having the variety that we've been able to pull together for the last 6 or 7 years. That I see more of that happening at Backbone, where there's more special releases coming out.
Right.
But that's not to forsake the core.
So this is a
Fair.
special release, the reserve, the X-ray.
No, we have that available pretty much always.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So Bone Snapper X-ray.
Yeah.
It's X-ray, but it's just been aged a bit longer.
4 years. So that one.
The nose is very different from the one that we just tried to the X-ray.
Tell me what do you think the difference is? Because I was actually thinking about that the other day.
Because it's aged a little bit longer, I would imagine, on the X-ray. So, because on the one that we just did before, what was the rye, the Bone Snapper rye?
Yep.
I really didn't get much off of the nose, but with this one with the X-ray, I'm actually getting a little more pepper off of the nose itself. Personally, so I know that there's going to be heat. There's always going to be heat, no matter what, and there's going to be the warmth, and that's one of the things that really grabs my attention is the warmth itself. So, from the Bone Snapper rye to the Bone Snapper X-ray, there's more of a nose on it, and I'm getting more of a pepper on it.
Yeah, when you taste a lot of bourbon, you have to think of a million ways to describe how sweet something is.
Right.
Yeah.
I get a sweet sensation. I get a little bit of that pepper you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't get the sweetness that the Bone Snapper has on it.
So I'm getting more of a, when I put my nose actually in it, there's more of a fruit to it at this point. I can't place my palate on it just yet because I haven't tried it, but I just know it's going to be a little bit more of, I hate to say the word bite because that word just it irks me, right?
So when you say bite, I'm thinking alcohol.
Okay.
Maybe not exactly what you mean, but I'm trying to think through.
I think it's like more of the spicy pepper.
Yeah, the spicy pepper. That's the bite that
he was talking about.
That's the bite that I'm thinking about.
So I smell on the nose. I'm smelling not a corn sweet, but I'm smelling a sugar sweet. Mm-hmm. Is what I'm getting on the nose. And now I'm going to taste it.
Yes, I just tasted it, and this is something that I could sip on the norm, just because of that. You get that feel right away, right on your palate, right on the roof of your mouth. It's there, in a very nice way. You're getting your rye. You know that it's a rye. Right on the front. What is the mash bill?
It's a lot more complex.
Exactly the same.
One. It's just aged a little bit longer, right?
Yeah,
so it's a lot more complex.
It is. Yeah. So I'm getting, Jamie, it's something you said, but I'm getting a little bit of those kind of baking, a little bit of baking spice, but I'm also getting kind of a yeast, like when bread rises. I'm getting a little bit of that, kind of in the middle of the palate. It's not as sweet as I remember, but that might just be, I don't know, where we are today.
It's doing something to the altitude.
You've had a number of these already. We've been tasting it. This is the third taste we've had, right?
And my altitude is flying. It's doing something on the roof of my mouth.
Yeah,
more so than the other rye, and more so than the.
I love how it lingered. It just all three of these, they've just lingered in such a nice way. Yeah. As we're having our conversation, I'm just sitting here. I'm more enjoying the lingering effect than anything else, because you can you can smell it up front, you can get the taste notes, but then it's that after effect where you sit back and you're like, all right, so now I'm starting to get a little bit more of that warmth.
Yes,
and you can feel that vanilla that's laying on the back of your palate and in the back of your throat, right?
I will say this about the two ryes. They have been a lot more consistent than the two main bourbons we sell. And that sounds like a bad thing, but for me it's actually not. So the two bourbons we're going to taste next, one's Backbone Prime, and the other one's Backbone Uncut. Backbone Prime sits at a price level similar to Bone Snapper. Should be about a $35 retail. Prime is a blended bourbon, so we've got mostly straight bourbon in there, but there's a little bit of rye and there's a little bit of light whiskey, which is a little treat we have for the very end of the show.
You know what I'm getting? I'm getting pine out of this Bone Snapper. That's what's on the roof of my mouth is pine.
Pine.
So on the X-ray, you're getting a little kind of a cedary pine tree.
Pine on the roof of my mouth afterwards. That's what I was getting there.
Well, I think that can be a little bit of a spearmint too.
Okay, so
but the pine is a good call for sure.
Yeah. We just make shit up.
What else are you gonna do in the man cave?
Well, I make a lot of shit up, so.
Matt, I'm going to switch some bottles. You make some shit up for a second.
All right, so I'm going to make some shit up here real quick. So, Nolan, help me
talk about the packaging.
Yeah, help me understand how long it took you to get the packaging. Through our wonderful government that we are all a part of.
It's really quick.
Is it quick? Really?
The feds do a great job. I mean,
they were backlogged for a while.
They were, and we certainly had some slower times, but I mean, right now it's 30 days. I mean, I think it's less than 30 days.
Really?
Yeah.
So, and you're constantly sending them content to review, are you not? So,
well, not only us, but the wine companies and the beer companies. The beer companies,
all of them.
The beer companies are. I mean, you talk about number of different items. Beer companies,
right?
And it's hard to pick a name for these damn things because the beer companies have got so many beers and they got to name all of them. No disrespect, but we have a handful of bourbons and whiskeys, but man, the beer companies can have
they take up a lot.
Yeah, they can have a dozen things. So
what was the last item that you had actually sent to them for the packaging or what have you?
Yeah, it was Decade Down.
Oh my God!
Was it Decade Down?
Decade Down at 30 days. I mean,
really,
piece of cake. Yeah. Wow. The other thing the government's done for us.
Please.
There was a really big piece of legislation that got made permanent last year, and it relates to federal excise tax. So if you're a small distiller like we are, up to a certain amount of gallons, you pay a lower federal excise tax.
Okay.
Yeah, so this came in 2018. It was a temporary law for 2 years. It was a bipartisan piece of temporary legislation. There was, I think, Ron Wyman from Oregon or Washington was the Democrat guy, and I forget who the Republican guy was. But this thing kind of rolled along. It came in for 18 and 19, and then they extended for 2020. But at the end of 2020, part of the last stimulus they did in that year, they made this tax rate permanent.
Huh.
So, for little guys like me, we have been helped by the government to be more competitive, and
So that actually helped you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good
the
deal.
tax is a third of our cost on average.
Yeah.
A third of the traditionally would go to the government.
Right.
Now that cost is way
Who's
down.
this FICA guy? Why does he keep taking my money?
All right, what's next?
That's with a capital F, actually.
Which bourbon's up next, Jimmy?
So you tell me. We got the Decade Down in front of us and the Uncut, which is your flagship, right?
Right.
The Backbone Bourbon Uncut. That's the
I think we were talking about we were going to do the Decade Down next. I think that's what we had just talked about. But Nolan, on you. Which one would you?
Let's do the Uncut.
Okay.
Do the Uncut.
Let's do the Uncut because.
So I cheated. I've had the Uncut.
That's okay.
So
when it comes to having good bourbon, I think we can cheat.
So, yeah, Steve, your sales connection. Steve, he had a sample bottle. Yeah. It was almost empty in his car, and he left it with me.
Nice.
He left it with me when we met him. And he was like, "Oh, here, we're gonna do this. You gotta try it. Take this with you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Did I get you a pour of that?
You did not. You kept it for yourself, man.
Right.
Come on.
We've been doing so many tastings.
I wanted to do this one first because I think it's traditional.
Yeah.
We've got the Decade Down, which I think my word for Decade Down is elegant. Backbone Uncut is traditional for me. When I think of this bourbon, I think you're going to get. It certainly has a style of its own. I think other distilleries, there's a difference. I get kind of a fatness to Backbone Uncut, which I think speaks to the richness of it. This is about a 5-year-old bourbon.
This one's coming in at 113.9.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
So almost 114 proof.
So we're moving in the right direction with proof. Because we started with the 107.
We're jumping around a little bit.
Decade Down's going to be a little bit less, but
right. So I
wanted to go next because there's some enhancements to the way we've blended Decade Down. It's a richer.
Okay.
Because you said it's a blend.
It's a blend.
Where the Uncut, that's the uncut, unfiltered.
It's 10 barrels, and we've done this for all 23 batches, 10 barrels at a time, all 53 gallon.
Nice.
We dump them. We put the least possible amount of filtration on it.
Yeah.
We want little bits of black powder to be in the bottle.
Of course.
We love that.
I want to chew on my.
Exactly.
I want to chew on my bourbon. I'm just saying.
If you don't touch your Backbone Uncut, you're going to find a little bit little bit of black dust.
Again,
it's not
harmful.
harmful.
A great color.
Yeah,
a nice.
Yeah.
It's got a nice.
Yeah.
Is there a hint of amber in there? Or is that just his red room that we're in?
Nah, I think I put it up to the light. There's a hint of amber in
There's
there.
definitely amber in that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
definitely. But for 113 proof, it's pretty. I mean, it's really. It's. I don't want to say soft, but because at the back there's a little bit of a bite, but it's pretty.
All right, so I've had 113
Sneaky.
and higher. Okay,
Yeah.
Personally, that is a very. You said light.
It's lightweight to me. I mean,
Yeah.
light in terms of mouthfeel. There's a lightness to it, but it's just really. The proof doesn't. You wouldn't think that's 113.
No.
You'd think that's probably 90, 95. It's got some of that red fruit in it. It's not quite cherry, but there's some. With the thing when you say the fruit, the black fruit, the red fruit, there's a little bit of astringency in that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Just a hint, but overwhelmingly there's that sweetness from the fruit, and I get a nice little balance of that where there's. I'm getting a great sweetness. It's a little tart, but at the same time, it's got just a touch of astringency, which I like in bourbon. I think,
and there's just it's just on the edge of having an ethanol taste. I haven't really gotten ethanol out of the other ones, and this is just on the edge, and I think that might be because of the high proof. It's just at the edge of that taste, but that could you said a word a second ago.
Astringency.
Yeah.
Astringency.
Yeah. So it's right at the edge there.
The astringency, I think, would be more of a on the sides of your mouth.
There was a different word that you used. Crap.
I think the word. You said it even earlier. It had more of a decadent feel. I think it's elegant. It was an elegant feel. I think you said that was about the decade down.
Right.
This has more of a decadent feel to it.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of lush, sweet. It's not a flat sweetness. There's a little bit of that. I'd say tartness, astringency, however you want to describe it.
It was the word tart.
Tart,
yeah.
Right.
It's like a confection.
It's not
type
tart,
deal,
but it's just there a little bit.
That's what the tart. It's just that
Right.
edge. It gives it an edge. It's a little edgy.
Right.
It's like silk almost.
Yeah.
Oh, it's silk velvet. Yeah, it's just as it sits on the roof of my mouth, you just kind of get that silky, creamy feel out
So
of it.
now that we're 50 minutes in,
Yeah.
full disclosure, we don't know what we're doing.
We haven't
the whole purpose
slightest
of the Man Cave is to talk to people that know what they're doing. Right. And to learn from you. And so like when I say it's like on the edge of like an ethanol taste, that tart, I was trying to find the right word. And tart was closer to what I was trying to.
Sure.
Again, so we're not.
Sure.
We're not super aficionados, right? And that's the whole point. We enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing sprung from I'm taking a walk with my wife, and she was like, "You are cranky." She goes, "Pour yourself a bourbon and let's take a walk." And then I go, "I got the screwball idea." I go, because I like bourbons, but I want to learn more about it. I go, I'm going to start a podcast with Matt about learning about bourbon.
You just want to start a
And
podcast.
I'm going to call it.
Then you called me.
And then I'm going to call it the Man Cave Happy Hour. And she's like, "Go for it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was texting Matt before we were done with the walk. I was searching the name to make sure it was available, and but so I mean that's the thing. Matt and I are trying to learn.
Do you know how
and we
far
really appreciate your tutelage this evening.
Well, it's all different. For different people have different experiences, but that's what I think you got to feel your way through this stuff. I think we're not having ice on it, and that's a whole nother component to drinking bourbon. And we're being a little bit serious about it, and that's fine. That's fine. But really, this stuff is going to work on ice. But people get different things out of it, and you feel your way through it.
I've splashed water in a couple of them. I don't know if you've noticed while I was doing it.
I did.
Just to see.
Which is really important.
If it was changing
Just
it up.
open it up
Absolutely.
a
little bit.
Absolutely.
It was,
so that's important because what happens is the water, it vaporizes some of the alcohol, so you're going to release more of those aromas. You're also going to get a little bit different flavor profile. When we taste seriously to evaluate buying certain barrels, we don't have any ice, but we have glasses that help you to get the aroma. But we do it neat, and then we do it with a little few drops of water, and that's how you really get a sense of what you're working with. So.
Yeah, folks that have listened to previous episodes or what have you, I always say I'm a purist. Mm-hmm. I drink my bourbon, my whiskey, my rye neat.
Yes,
I'm always a neat guy because I want that initial feel the entire time.
Right.
So if I want to open it up and throw a ball of ice in there, that's a treat.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I typically will go through things neat. Mm-hmm. Personally,
I'm because it's like I'll sit down and I gotta get up for work at 6 a.m. and I can't be hammering them back on a Wednesday night.
Hey kids, here we go, another movie.
Maybe I want one, right? So I usually do like a big chunk of ice and a pour. That way it'll last like the whole evening, and it melts down and. I like a bourbon that can stand up to that. Mm-hmm. In your experience, how's because different bourbons, they'll stand up. Some will work in cocktails, some won't work in cocktails. So for you, how is it? How does it stand up to ice or neat?
I think the hot proof is going to help with the ice. I'm a big fan of a big rock.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you're going to get the progressions at a nice pace. That first sip is going to be tight, big. Within a minute or two, you're going to start to get that middle place where the oils have started to interact with the water and it's opened up a little bit. And then at the end, it's going to be, weak or softer or something which, if you're going to have a couple of those, you have a nice journey along the way. You can get like an angry, big, wild bourbon up front, and at the end, it's, you're shaking hands and hugging. So, it's great.
That sounds like a number of nights for me, to be honest with you.
Yes. So I haven't tried the Backbone over ice yet, but that is on the horizon. I'm pretty sure because I got that bottle at home, and my wife and I, we just went down to Florida for spring break, and our 23-year-old son was home alone.
He didn't touch it?
Had a few friends over, and I was a little worried about my bourbon shelf. I was like, I gotta get a system. Maybe like yellow ribbons I'll tie on the ones like don't touch these. The rest of them have your way with it. So I was a little worried. When it's.
And you came home and all the kids were still there. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I got a Japanese Blanton's, and
really?
I pulled it out. Yeah, and I pulled a friend of mine. His partner was traveling, and he came home with like 6 bottles. He's like, "You want one?"
Wow.
And he's like, sold it to me for like $100. I'm like, yeah. So, I pulled it out for Easter to share with my brothers and my brother-in-laws, and I left it on the counter, and I'm like, oh crap, man. I hope the boy and his buddies don't come over and go, oh, there's a bunch of bourbon here. It's great. Look at the one with the pony on it. Let's do that.
It's in mid-stride. Wait a minute. That's the hardest one to find.
So those ones, that's barrel strength, right? Or what's it's a big proof.
Yeah. They're good. So, but they survived. So they. So I was a little worried. On our spring, but after trying it, and then smelling it again, I'm getting more of a sweetness on the second nosing.
I already finished mine. What are you waiting for?
I'm getting much more sweetness on the second nosing.
I was going to go decade down.
Yeah, let's go decade down.
Yeah. Because you pulled out this other one, Jamie, the Triple Down Light Whiskey. But
that's where we got to start the end because that's at that fireball's at 130.
So, decade down, anniversary, although it's a 10-year anniversary, there is no bourbon in this that's 10 years old. Most of it is 6 to 7 years old.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I think is a very, very good place to drink bourbon. I think you will get a lot of satisfaction out of bourbon that's between 6 to 10 years old.
Fair.
But what makes Decade Down unique is that...
I love the packaging. I just love the colors of the packaging itself.
Well, I got a story about the name, too, which I'll tell you here in a second.
Please.
If you just shut up for a second, Matthew.
Sure, I'm sorry.
So,
I'm going to sit back and drink. Never mind.
We wanted to do a special...
Did you get that?
Look, we wanted to do a release. And as I say, we have more variety now than ever before. The first... finishing casks we used were these sherry barrels, and we put some really good bourbon in it. Actually, the bourbon in this is some of the all of the bourbon is from those barrels we bought in 2014.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Yeah.
That were aged a little bit longer?
Okay.
Well, they're from air dried.
Air dried a little bit. Okay.
The color on this is dark.
Well, that's from the sherry barrels.
Yeah, it's much. This is much darker than the other. And the Triple Dawn Light is light. We'll talk about that. But this is a noticeably darker in the bottle.
So 75% of this is straight bourbon that is between. Most of it was 6 to 7 years old. We used one that was around 5 years old.
Yeah.
That's what drives the age statement. But we actually picked the barrels. We knew what the barrels were. Kind of there's a term called honey barrel. We picked honey barrels for this. So that was 75% of the blend. The other 25% was this really good bourbon that had been in sherry barrels for a year. So, I almost brought. I still got some of this stuff that was in sherry barrels for a year, and I've got probably about a third of a bottle. And if we had a smaller group, I probably would have brought it. But it is so rich; it's like a dessert. It's like a dessert. But when we put the blend together, we wanted a more of a traditional bourbon flavor. We wanted some astringency, which I think balances the bourbon. But then that sherry adds just a nice underlying complex sweetness. There's a dryness to the sweetness. I get kind of you definitely get more of a prune kind of or a dried.
All right, so we've been doing this for almost 3 years. You're the first person to say the word prune. Get a prune feel out of it. I'm not kidding. I don't ever think anyone ever said the word prune as far as a taste profile.
I was thinking of purple. I was going like a plum. I'm persnickety. I'm a fussy eater. And I don't, apples, oranges. I eat the crap out of those.
What happens if you put tomatoes on your sandwich?
Pickles.
Pickles, that's what it is.
I'm allergic. I break out in hissy fits.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a condition.
It is. So I'm a fussy eater. So when it's like, because I don't eat plums, I don't eat pears. I know what they smell like, and I know what they taste like, and I know I don't want to eat them. Peaches. Matt could eat a peach all day.
You're speaking my language. Yeah.
But that's a little dirty. But I was thinking like a plum, but you said a prune
or a
okay.
fig. I mean, if you guys have figs,
okay,
fig is probably better.
Fig is better
because it's not as heavy as a prune, but
it's the dried fruit, the dried fruit. That sweetness you get out of a dried fruit is different than the wet fruit. And I say
I'm not a big dried fruit guy.
It's richer. It's richer.
But you see why the astringency matters, because 75% of this is really good straight bourbon. So when you have a lot of that sherry and these tones that we're talking about, and that's what we felt like when we had just the sherry, that it was too much. You might have half a glass and think, man, that's too much. So what? When you blend, one of the things you've got to do is you've got to balance what you're working with. And I tell you what, we wanted people to be able to have more than one. We wanted people to have 2 glasses. I don't want to say more than 2, because if it's so rich. You go, man, that was really good, but man, I can't have another one. We don't want that.
Okay.
We want people to have 2. I mean, beyond that, you're on your own. But
yeah.
But it's got to be something where it's not over the top, something that's balanced, and that's the key to blending. I mean, everyone, there's a bunch of people out there that I think well, dude, we'll just throw these things together and it'll be great.
Right.
We'll taste it once, but it's really a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to. You got to have the components first, but I think it's like sometimes when you cook, you just want to add a lot of cheese to something, and sometimes it sounds like in the first bite is great, but then after the 5th bite, you go, man, it's a little bit too rich
That's
for me.
That's a bit too much garlic, Jamie.
Exactly.
Never too much. Nolan, I'm calling you, man. There's never too much cheese. But no, you're right.
But your point is taken. Yeah, it's just if you add too much, it may not be the right thing.
Right. And
so the Decade Down, is this a regular item or is this a specialty item?
It's a specialty item.
Okay.
Right now it's a once a year release. It's going to be October, November. Around our anniversary is December. So
okay, so it'll be like usually like that.
Yeah,
the same sort of blend each time.
It'll be. Yeah, I think we're going to stick to that. It'll be pretty close, but we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go through. This is only maximum probably 8 or 9 barrels.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
And we would do more if it grows and becomes popular. But we're going to pick those barrels. We're going to get stuff that we feel like is a honey barrel.
How many states are you available in right now?
We're in about 20.
Okay.
There's a few that are state controlled, and I wouldn't count them. Like Oregon is one that we're in, but we might sell a case to them a year. So.
Okay.
But East Coast, West Coast, Texas, Midwest is a big market for us.
Okay,
good for you.
So here in the Metro Detroit area, Michigan. So do you on your website? Do you have a place people can find where you're available?
Yes.
Okay.
At least we can find the distributor. We have a distributor, and some states have given us where to buy, like Michigan has.
Yeah.
And where we've got that information, we put it on the website.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sure.
So the Backbone available in Michigan, but not in large quantities.
Not in large quantities,
right.
but I really like my distributor, and I'm leaning to give him more and more. So I hope you heard that, Uday.
Michigan.
Uday's here.
Uday's here. Yeah. Steve's here. Uday's here. There's a party going on. People can see it in our camera. Yeah. There's like a party going on. People are like killing the bottles he brought up there.
Well, good. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, it's Steve put together a nice little event here. Yeah. All for this, all for the tasting. I appreciate it.
BackboneBourbon.com.
Yes.
Right? There's so much more to talk about. We would love to have you back.
There's one more. There's one more to go.
There is still
man.
one more, but there's so much more to talk about.
It's been great. You guys have had great questions.
Keep away from open flames. We're going. The label says lights right across the front, and then you look down at the bottom. You go, holy shiitake mushrooms. That says 130. Talk to me about the triple down lights.
Well, so I got to tell you about the name. So we bought back in 2014. We bought some light whiskey barrels.
What do you mean? What light whiskey barrels?
Light whiskey is actually a kind of whiskey. If you go to the TTB definition Bible, just like bourbon has a definition, rye has a definition, light whiskey's got a definition, and I'll give you the highlights.
Fair play.
It's a corn. It's high corn typically. Its entry proof is a lot higher than bourbon. Bourbon can't go in at higher than I think 125. This can go in up to 140.
Yeah,
proof.
baby.
140 proof. So, and the other thing about light whiskey is it can never see a new barrel. So these are all used barrels. So entry proof, the mash build, and the new barrel or the used barrel.
Because it says whiskey, not bourbon on it. Yeah,
it's a whiskey for sure.
It's not diet whiskey. I'm telling you.
No, and believe me, we've had people say.
I like the sticker on the side, and you suggest a pairing of a cigar with it as well.
It's a single barrel. That's a caveat. This is a single barrel product.
Fair play.
But I bought it tonight because it sort of has taken on a legendary status around the country. I get a lot of calls about, hey, can we do a light whiskey barrel? One of the things that we haven't talked about, and it may not be obvious on the bottle, but this is a 14-year-old whiskey.
Really?
Yes, it is. So it's just its own kind of whiskey. It's very sweet, but it's very interesting sweet. It's not it is kind of over the top, but man, that first one, it's super satisfying, and you won't get that it's 130 proof. At least I'd be surprised if you did. So let's try it.
All right. Yeah. So Rob Harris just joined us, and he commented because I got the Bone Snapper single barrel rye, and it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Rob's really cool.
He's got quite the collection.
Rob, we started with the ryes,
yeah,
and we're about 7 bottles past that. So wrap your head around that. This is light. The color on this is
that's that used
light.
Barrel. That's that used barrel.
Okay. Yeah. All right. It's coming in lighter because it's all right.
But I literally get calls from all over the country. Hey, can I get a barrel?
So why triple down? Why
here's
triple down?
Here's the background. So we bought these barrels in 2014. We put them in We have a product called Backbone Prime, which is a blended bourbon, and 2 or 3% of Backbone Prime is light whiskey. And we liked it because it adds some complexity, it added some alcohol, some proof. But we had these, I don't know, it was 20 barrels or so, and we just weren't selling a lot of Prime. And, these barrels were expensive. So we used the barrels in Prime. So there's 1, right?
Right.
I try to sell the barrels, okay?
However?
That was 2. Couldn't sell them. No one wanted to buy them. Now you can't get these kind of barrels. The world's gone nuts on these barrels in the secondary market. You can't find them anymore. Yeah. But this is in 2014.
So number 3.
So number 3 was, well, shit, let's try to sell it. So we sent it out. We sent it out as a single barrel. We the first establishment of the taste was blend, and the guy, a good friend of mine, he loved it. He took 2 barrels. Okay. Now, they're very low yielding at 14 years old. I mean, you might only get 10, 15 cases out of this 6 packs.
Right.
But
what's the proof on this?
This is 130, and believe me,
130.
but this is kind of a low. I mean, this is kind of low for this. I've got a bunch that are in the high 140s. A bunch.
Yeah.
So, this is, you have to have a license to drink this. You need to be in a safe environment. You need to be with someone that you trust.
Away from open flames.
Right. For folks that are on video, safe environment.
Yeah. The man cave is a safe environment.
Very, very, very much. Well, yeah.
Oh man, it's a good one to end on. It's a good one to end on.
All right, so I didn't sip that one.
Ooh, buttery. There's some. I'm getting a creamy, but not creamy, but
creamy's right.
Buttery.
Right.
Not creamy, but buttery. Yeah.
There's
Rob said single barrel 140 plus. Sign me up.
Yes, he did.
See, and Rob's one of those, like, there's a bunch of bourbon clubs in the Metro Detroit area. The Michigan Bourbon Club, the Detroit Bourbon Club, bourbon lovers of United States and
Tell
Detroit.
Them
I don't know.
Whoever they are, contact me directly. I'd love to get them hooked up with some samples.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Definitely.
There you go, Rob.
Yeah.
So that triple down real quick. I did not sip this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, I did not sip this, but as it's continuing to linger.
I'm not feeling 130.
I'm not feeling 130 at all, but there's that movie theater butter that's going on. Right?
I like that. I haven't thought of it that way, but I agree with it. It's a creaminess. I mean, Jamie said that.
Yeah.
So there's a million ways to describe sweetness, but creamy is a sweet kind of a flavor.
Yeah,
but
fair.
There might be a little bit of a textural component to that too.
I'm
not sure if you're getting that, but it's not a dark whiskey. I don't get a ton of oiliness in it, which I did in the Decade Down, which we just had.
Right.
But there's something kind of really creamy about it.
That's very special. That triple down is very special. I don't know if it's the proof, but that was very special for me. That is something that I would seek out and want to have on my shelf.
The triple down, this is a special expression, right?
Yes.
So not super widely available. Although Michigan is one of your favorite states.
Yes. So it's really only available in a single barrel. There is a very distinct possibility that it'll be available in very limited quantities as a standalone product.
Sure.
My problem with that is we sell in single barrels, and then also I'm using it to do some blending as well. It's a great blending agent. But I just like I said earlier, with the bourbon business, you don't know how things are going to turn out. You think you're making mistakes, and they end up being, marvelous.
Happy accidents.
Absolutely.
Right.
So when we bought these barrels in 2013 or whatever it was, I mean, in 2015, I was basically, whatever hair I have left, I was pulling my hair out trying to get rid of them because I needed cash to put into something else I could sell.
Fair.
And then they turn out like this, and then if I have to boil it down to like one of the things that's really surprised me over the however many years we've been in business, it's this thing. That this thing was an afterthought. It's kind of like the band that did that quick. They wrote a song in 10 minutes, and then it's like the best song they ever did.
Right.
It's kind of like that for us. I mean, I had no idea. And then to give you a little bit of under the belly info. In the secondary market in the world I operate, where we buy barrels, these barrels are virtually, they're like hen's teeth. You can't get them. I've got a bunch of them, fortunately.
Nice.
So, and actually, I have some they haven't even. These barrels, I think I have about 20 of them that are all around about 155 proof.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I can't wait to send them out. I can't wait to send them out.
Itching for it?
Yeah.
Each bottle comes with its own fire
I want
extinguisher.
Come On Eileen to happen already. Come on, I want that one hit. Come on. No, we have picked your brain so much this evening. I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to
Good
sit
questions.
down and have questions.
Easy. You made it easy. And let's face it, we're tasting bourbon. How bad could it be?
Yeah.
This is called the conversation. Right?
Absolutely.
So backbonebourbon.com will get people to all the different spirits and all the different expressions that you got going.
And if anyone's listening that's part of a bourbon club and you want to have a crack at our single barrel program, I'd love to send you samples.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I'll say about the single barrel program is we want it to be a great experience. Mm-hmm. We don't want it to be a drag. I mean, we want to send you great stuff. We want to make it easy. Mm-hmm. We're going to send you lots of information about what we send, and we want it to be good. We want you to buy one and then shoot in 2 or 3 months or 6 months, buy another one.
Fair.
So anyway, that's my marketing.
Yep. No. Thank you again for the time this evening. Your brain is amazing. Whatever you got going on, keep doing it. and thank you to those folks that chimed in tonight. Bill and Robert. Thank you for listening to the Man Cave Happy Hour this evening online.
Thank you.
But you can find us on all the great podcast platforms that are out there.
That's wherever fine podcasts are sold.
There it is.
Yeah, you guys have been great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I need a refill.
Yep.